In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, August 14th, here in South Korea. Employment expands in July, rebounding above the 100,000 growth mark on year for the first time in 3 months, with 28.8 million people in employment last month, up 172,000 compared to the same month last year. And Russia scrambles to respond to Kyiv's unexpected ground incursion by dispatching reinforcements to the Kursk region as Ukraine speaks of halting its counter-advances if the Kremlin halts its invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, Seoul endures another night of sweltering conditions Tuesday as the capital city faces tropical nights for 24 days in a row, marking the second longest streak since data compiling began in 1907. Korea's unemployment rate retreated to its lowest level since last October as July's employment expanded well over 100,000 on year. Our correspondent Lee Soo-jin has details.
South Korea saw job figures increase on year by more than 100,000 for the first time in 3 months in July. Data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows that there were 28.8 million people in employment last month, up 172,000 from the previous year. This comes after the on-year job growth was below 100,000 for both May and June. The rate of employment for people aged 50 and above rose by 0.1 percentage points on year to 63.3%, which is the highest figure for any month of July on record. And July's unemployment rate stood at 2.5%, 0.2 percentage points lower compared to the same month last year. But the rise in the job market was mainly driven by those aged 60 and above, with 278,000 more people in that age group in jobs in July compared to last year. On the other hand, for those between 15 and 29 years old, employment fell by 149,000 on year. And despite the overall growth in terms of job sectors, employment figures in the construction sector fell by a whopping 81,000. This marks the largest on-year drop for the month of July since 2013.
There has been a downward trend for about 3 months, and the decline has widened. The extreme heat and heavy rain, as well as a greater decline in specialized construction contracts, have all contributed to the overall decline in the construction sector.
And employment in the manufacturing sector, which has been seeing an upward trend, also fell by 11,000 in July, with the largest drop seen in those aged 40 and below. During a job task force meeting on Wednesday, the first vice finance minister acknowledged that while overall employment figures were positive, pan-governmental efforts are needed to address the sluggish employment figures in sectors such as construction, as well as among young people. He announced that measures including livelihood assistance and job training will be strengthened, and that pilot programs for youth employment that include connecting college students to alumni will be carried out starting this month. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
And capital Seoul endured another evening of sweltering conditions on Tuesday. The city has been bearing tropical nights for 24 days in a row, marking the second longest streak since records began in 1907. A tropical night refers to the weather phenomenon of temperatures hovering at a minimum of 25 degrees Celsius between 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. Seoul's longest period of tropical nights was 26, recorded in 2018. Pundits believe this record may be broken this year. Meanwhile, South Korea's first homegrown military reconnaissance satellite has been deemed fit for service. According to the Defense Acquisition Program Administration on this Wednesday, the Defense Ministry has approved the satellite for combat suitability following its launch last December. It's the first of the 5 spy satellites South Korea plans to launch by the year 2025 for surveillance on North Korea. The satellite can capture detailed images of the Earth's surface at any time of the day and will serve as a key asset to the country's kill chain preemptive strike system. On the international front, Russia is reportedly responding to Kyiv's unexpected incursion into the Kursk region, which the latter says it will stop if the Kremlin halts its invasion of Ukraine. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
Ukraine continued to push ahead with its offensive in Russia's Kursk region for the 8th day on Tuesday. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said that his military was able to capture 74 villages in the region, while Kyiv's top commander said that its forces were able to advance 3 kilometers in 1 day, taking control of an additional 40 square kilometers of Russian territory. Ukraine says it has no intention of occupying Russian territory, adding that it would stop its offensives in mainland Russia if Moscow agrees to a fair peace deal. However, Moscow is looking to repel the Ukrainian forces, saying it's already in the process of doing so. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, Ukraine has already lost up to 420 troops in the past 24 hours, and over 2,000 soldiers have been killed since the incursions began on August 6th. While the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry called on Russia to agree to restore peace in the 2.5-year-long war, Russian President Vladimir Putin a day earlier said no negotiations could happen with those that attack civilians and civilian infrastructure, slamming the 8-day-long incursion. Meanwhile, continued fighting in the Kursk region is also raising major concerns over threats it can pose to energy infrastructures in the region. Fighting took place in a region where a pipeline carrying Russian natural gas to Europe via Ukraine is located, while missile fragments were found near the Kursk nuclear power plant. Russian nuclear operators say that the power plant is currently functioning normally, and radiation levels at the plant and the surrounding area are stable. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
A peace deal between Israel and Hamas may serve to offset a planned assault by Iran against Israel. Now, this potential scenario has been floated by U.S. President Joe Biden. Our foreign affairs correspondent Peunji explains.
Hamas has said it fired 2 rockets targeting Israel's Tel Aviv, but the Israeli military said one fell in the sea off the central city, while the other did not cross into the country's territory. Local media outlets said explosions were heard in the city on Tuesday local time, but no casualties were reported. Amid escalating tensions in the region, U.S. President Joe Biden has said Iran could hold off on a retaliatory strike on Israel if a ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel is reached.
We'll see what Iran does and we'll see what happens if there's any attack. But I'm not giving up.
His remarks come after Iran vowed a severe response against Israel over the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, who was killed in Tehran after attending the Iranian president's inauguration. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations also called on members of the Security Council to help finalize and implement a ceasefire agreement for Gaza.
The United States' overall goal remains to turn the temperature down in the region, deter and defend against any future attacks, and avoid regional conflict. That starts with finalizing a deal for an immediate ceasefire with hostage release in Gaza.
While a ceasefire deal still remains uncertain, the Palestinian leader has reportedly said Iran could soon decide whether or not to retaliate against Israel. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who's currently visiting Moscow, told Russia's TASS news agency on Tuesday local time that the decision could be made in the next few days, or even the next few hours. While adding that Palestinians are against war, he noted the U.S. is actively involved in ceasefire negotiations, although it's hard to foresee what will happen. Peunji, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in other news, as part of efforts to better leverage AI technology, Google has rolled out its Pixel phones earlier than usual. Our Yoon-jin reports.
On Tuesday, at a product launch event at Alphabet's Bayview campus in California, Google unveiled new artificial intelligence features that are coming to Android devices. Its AI voice assistant, Gemini Live, has been completely rebuilt to provide a better assistant experience for users. With 10 new voices to choose from that serve to be more natural, conversational, and intuitive, Gemini can follow the user's train of thought and understand user intent. Google's Senior Vice President of Devices and Services, Rick Osterloh, said that Google was now bringing to reality the promise of AI.
The new Gemini assistant can go beyond understanding your words to understanding your intent, so you can communicate more naturally. It can synthesize large amounts of information in seconds and tackle complex tasks. It can draft messages for you, brainstorm with you, and give you ideas on how you can improve your work.
An analyst from global market intelligence firm, the International Data Corporation, said that Google nailed the two things that consumers are looking for AI to do, which is organization and content creation. The AI-powered technology will be available on its latest Pixel 9 series smartphones, which start at $799 US, $100 more than the Pixel 8. Holding less than 1% market share in global smartphone shipments, Google doesn't make a lot of money from its hardware business. But its latest feature could help drive revenue through its Gemini AI subscription program, which Android users can access for a monthly fee of $19.99. While Google normally announces its new lineup in the fall, pundits say the tech giant released its latest Pixel 9 lineup earlier than expected, with Apple's iPhone 16 scheduled for release next month. Google also announced new versions of its smartwatch, the Pixel Watch 3 and Pixel Buds Pro 2 wireless earbuds on Tuesday. Iun-jin, Arirang News.
Automakers here in Korea will be advised to disclose information about the batteries they use in their electric vehicles. Intentions to this end were shared after a government meeting back on Tuesday amid mounting public fears of a series of EV-related fires, including a recent incident at an apartment complex in Incheon, where a Mercedes-Benz EV parked underground burst into flames. In response, Hyundai, which accounts for more than half of the domestic EV market, has been the first to voluntarily share information regarding its battery suppliers. The government has also advised free inspections for all EVs sold in the country. Up next, we shed light on more regional efforts here aimed at tackling Korea's demographic decline by fostering an environment that appeals to young entrepreneurs as well as writers. Our Kim Da-mi has more.
A pretty coffee shop stands out in this quiet rural village. From its window, a beautiful view of Tagulsan Mountain. This coffee shop was started by a young couple 2 years ago, and it's quite busy even on a weekday afternoon. Visitors to this wine bar down an alley in a residential part of town are greeted with unique artwork. After studying art, the owner has returned to his hometown to settle down. The small wine bar started after he made connections with the townspeople through his art therapy program.
There are many elderly people in Uiryeong-gun, and the county offers many associated support programs. So I saw it as an opportunity to come out here.
A large group of young people are drinking tea while looking around this town together. They are writers from the capital area visiting Uiryeong-gun County. They are also taking part in a government project that aims to attract young people to such rural towns.
There is a pretty big cultural gap between the metropolitan areas and the rural villages. We're trying to collaborate with local craftsmen to create an opportunity where we can invite these young visitors and show them the specialities of our town.
Facing population extinction, Uiryeong-gun County set up an organization in 2021 dedicated to implementing new policies to support young people. The county has invested in projects such as a designated shared residential space and funding for startups. In just a few years, the proportion of young people from farming and rural households returning home has increased.
The proportion of the younger generation returning home to farming and rural areas is gradually increasing. It has risen from 30% to 37%, and in the first quarter of this year, already reached 50%.
The motto, "Growth of the Youth Enlivens the Region," has played a key role in trying to prevent rural population extinction. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Also in local news, a new book about the plight of comfort women by Korean actor Cha In-pyo has been making headlines here. My colleague Kim Bo-kyung tells us why.
An actor and a writer whose writing is to be studied at one of most prestigious universities in the world. That is Cha In-pyo, whose novel Once We Look at the Same Star was selected as reading material for Korean studies classes from next semester at Oxford University. He was even invited as a guest speaker at the university's inaugural Korean Literature Festival on June 28th. His inspiration to address the issue of comfort woman came when he saw on TV a woman known as Grandma Hoon coming back home from Cambodia in 1997. She was just 16 years old when taken from her hometown by the Japanese army and forced into sexual slavery, known euphemistically as comfort woman. Korea was liberated from Japanese colonial rule in 1945, but many comfort women, including Grandma Hoon, could not come back home out of shame. She lived half a century in the Cambodian jungle until she came across a Korean traveler to whom she expressed her wish to go back home. Though she lost her language, her identity, she could sing the Korean folk song Arirang, and that moved his heart.
My heart was aching because of the mixed feeling of, I would say, sadness, anger, and disappointment, humiliation. When I thought of these comfort women, this word, what if, kept coming to my mind. What if? What if these women were not taken away, had not been taken away, and somehow could have stayed home? These what ifs were my questions, so I started writing my novel.
Filled with resentment, he started writing a novel. But such intense, negative emotion could not sustain him, and when his laptop broke, he just gave up. 6 years later, he started writing again, motivated not by political sentiment, but to let his children know the painful history of comfort women. He adds that when we fully empathize with the pain of one era, the next generation will not have to suffer the same pain.
Whether you are Korean or Japanese or from any other country in the world, if we gather together and fully emphasize the pain of comfort women together, then I think the genuine apology, not the forced one, will emerge from there, as well as the true reconciliation for the next generation.
The full episode of Cha In-pyo's in-depth story will be on air on The Globalists on Wednesday at 4:50 p.m. Korea time. 김보경, 아리랑 뉴스.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. We begin today in India, where some 300,000 resident doctors and 8,000 physicians are on strike as of Tuesday, demanding justice for a female trainee doctor who was raped and murdered at a government-run hospital in Kolkata. Thousands of doctors, nurses and medics marched in Kolkata and the surrounding West Bengal state before the protests spread to western Maharashtra state and India's capital, New Delhi, where junior doctors held banners that read "Doctors are not punching bags." West Bengal's Health Secretary, Narayan Swarup Nigam, appealed to the protesting doctors, asking them to return to work as medical services were halted by the demonstrations. The protests come after a 31-year-old female trainee doctor was found dead on Friday morning in a seminar room of the R.G. Carr Medical College, where an autopsy showed that she was sexually assaulted and murdered the night before. The West Bengal State Minister Mamata Banerjee said on Monday that the principal of the college has resigned, while a high court in Kolkata ordered the criminal investigation to be handed over to India's Central Bureau of Investigation, a federal agency. Authorities have said that a police volunteer was arrested in connection with the crime. A study released on Monday says an immense reservoir of liquid water may exist on planet Mars, under the rocky outer crust of the planet. The findings come after analysis of data from NASA's Mars InSight lander showed the reservoir located some 11 to 20 kilometers below the Martian surface within fractured igneous rocks, indicating that it is large enough to hold enough water to fill an ocean the size of the planet's surface. The InSight lander, which has been on Mars since 2018, measured seismic data from vibrations over 4 years, which showed the presence of liquid underground. While previous probes found frozen water at the Martian poles and evidence of water vapor in the atmosphere, this is the first time liquid water has been found on the planet. A former member of Unit 731, the Japanese Army's biological weapons unit, which conducted horrific experiments on humans during the Second World War, arrived in Harbin City in northeast China on Monday to testify and expose the unit's crimes and apologize to the victims. Hideo Shimizu was among the last batch of the Unit 731 Youth Corps when he was sent by Japan to Harbin. He spent over 4 months witnessing human dissections, experiments, and cultivation and testing of pathogens on living human samples. Shimizu, who was conscripted into the army in March 1945, was only 14 years old when he was stationed in China before fleeing with the retreating Japanese military in August 1945. Now 94 years old, he revealed his identity as a former Unit 731 member in 2016 and began his campaign of public appearances and interviews to expose its atrocities. Unit 731, Japan's secret chemical and biological warfare research base during the Second World War, performed human experiments on at least 3,000 people. Almost 5 years after over 100 million euros worth of jewelry was stolen from the Green Vault Museum in Dresden, Germany, the collection can once again be seen by the public after police recovered most of the stolen jewels. In November 2019, thieves stole pieces from the Green Vault Museum, including over 4,300 diamonds with an estimated value of over $124 million. While the German police have said most of the stolen items have been returned, pieces including an epaulette on which a precious stone known as the Dresden White Diamond was mounted remain missing. An official from Dresden State Museums said that the jewelry pieces will be back on display in their original spots this week. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. What a searing day we had yesterday under blazing sunshine. Not surprisingly, Seoul had its hottest afternoon temperatures of the season at 36.4 degrees Celsius yesterday. Today should be as hot as yesterday. It looks as though the western parts of Korea are hotter than the rest, and the warming trend continues on this Baibok, which is considered to be the last day of searing summer heat. Then another round of passing rain is in the forecast for mostly western regions. Rain could pound down once it starts to rain. Meanwhile, Jeju Island will see heavy rainfall through Friday. Seoul walked up to the second longest run of consecutive tropical nights on record, 24 nights in a row. And there is a chance we could set a new record this week. Meanwhile, Seoul and Daejeon should get up to 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon, and skies will remain sunny until that rain falls. Tomorrow looks to be a repeat of today's forecast, and unbearable heat looks to continue for another week or so. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Right, that ends our Wednesday afternoon newscast. Coming up next is our panel session, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.